This is Infection, the survival podcast recorded live on Wednesday, November the 9th, 2022, episode 408. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another edition of Infection, the survival podcast. And Infection is your source for the latest information on survival gaming news. We also take a look at things in and around the video game industry, sprinkle in a little bit of politics here and there because it is so prevalent in the industry. My name is Nick Craig. You can check me out on Twitter, not verified, at Nicholas M. Craig. You can also visit our website, infectionpodcast.com. The million-dollar question is my lovely co-host, Brian Aldridge. Is he going to whip out his credit card and spend $7.99 a month for his verification on Twitter? Hello, Brian.
Hey, I might. I don't know. We'll see if I actually use
not.
Twitter.
Why? Why would you do that? What a waste of money that would be.
Well, we'll see what I do. If it lets me troll more or be able to troll with dignity, then I can do it. Right?
Oh, troll with dignity. I like that. I like your moral high ground that you're taking on that. Yeah. As long as it makes my posts more important, then we're good. Which is exactly why all of the actual blue check marks are pissed, because now all the peasants like yourself and me can pay for the blue check mark, and that's not a problem.
We can be them with a mere $7.99. I mean, I need to pull some of that information because there was, I guess, a lot of scandal happening with people that they were pretty much blackmailing people to get the check marks. I'll pull an article and throw it in the notes so that you can decide if you want to check that out. But it's pretty interesting. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can get me at Boise Computer, of course, at Brian Aldridge on Gab, Parler, Getter, Truth Social, and a couple of other places, I'm sure. If you want to go check out my blog, it's Bite of Tech, and of course, if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com. That's the best place because you can join our Discord where we still have our Conan Exile server running. It's been auto-updating and doing its thing. I did up the XP rate to like 5x, so if you're looking to get a little bit faster experience in there and try it out, that'll let you do it. And we also have 11 ARC servers going right now that you can go and jump on whatever map. They're all 11 different maps and all connected, so if you want to transfer dinos between them, it's a pretty good experience. If you want to talk about a certain thing on the show, make sure you just post it in the news channel because we'll review that before the live show starts. And then if it's something that's relevant to the show, we'll bring it up. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch and YouTube. And then, of course, if you want to listen, that's after the fact because we do record it and then upload it. So if you go to the lower right-hand side, lots of places that you can listen to the show. And if you are going to be listening, that means that the particular episode show notes are online, and you can go to those show notes and look at links for maybe videos, especially if you're listening, videos that you missed. We've got source material, articles, everything that we refer to during that live show is right on that page along with a nice video and audio player. So if you want to support the show, you can do that through the top of the menu or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, and want to thank our friend UGX Vibe for hitting us up with the resub during the last program. I'm not sure that we mentioned him on the air, and if we did, well, 2 mentions for the price of 1. So thanks, UGX. Thanks, Bob. Greatly appreciated. All right, Brian, off of a pretty interesting show last week with everything going on with Xbox and Twitter and Gamergate and all of that, I think it might make sense to start off with Twitter again, as we are now another week down the proverbial rabbit hole of Elon Musk's ownership. And the verification system is in effect as of today. I'm seeing people posting that they've subscribed to what is being called Twitter Blue, which used to be $4.99 a month. It's now $7.99 a month and comes with a verification check. He's fired a whole bunch of employees, like almost 4,000 of them, which we talked about last week as well. He's trying to build the brand back in some way. He's still not, everybody thought he was just going to allow the platform to kind of post whatever you want. You had people, tech journalists that are supposed to be nonpartisan. Well, you would assume would be nonpartisan when they're talking about tech work, tech news, saying that the platform is just going to become a diatribe of the N-word and a whole bunch of other awful, terrible slurs. That's not happened at all. He's kept the head of the trust and safety guy. He put out a tweet today showing that the total impressions of tweets with slurs has come way down from where it has been in weeks and months past under prior ownership. So none of the awful, terrible claims of all of the terrible and awful things that Elon Musk was going to do has happened. But still, people are still losing their damn minds over the platform. Pretty crazy.
Well, let's talk really quickly, because there was comedians and various people, famous people that had their check marks, that wanted to test this. And they said all those things that you're saying. Oh, this means that people are going to be able to say all these hateful things. And so, for instance, Kathy Griffin decided that she was going to change her picture and change her name to Elon Musk. Her picture was Elon Musk's profile picture. Change her name to Elon Musk, and then start saying just things that Elon Musk would not say. And then she promptly got banned, a permanent ban from Twitter, and was pissed about it. Then she said, well, it was just parody. It was just joking. And a number of comedians did this because they wanted to prove that, you could, if you're as a verified person, you could do all these things if everybody had it. Well, they soon found out that being verified means that you are actually having to be more accountable, because you're not allowed to impersonate anybody unless you put parody in the actual name of the person. So you can have Elon Musk parody, and then you can post things as if you were Elon Musk, because people will realize that you're joking. Kind of like there's a Donald Trump one that's out there of someone who posts ridiculous things, with Donald Trump's picture, and it says parody. But she went through there and said all these things, so that people would get screenshots and not, ignore the little handle, but say, oh, I can't believe Elon Musk said this. Well, that's what you're doing when you get verified. You're verifying that the name on there in the picture is you, or, at least the name is you. That's what you're verifying, that you're representing yourself as yourself. Same thing with the $8 verification. All that's going to do is have it where people have to confirm that they're a real person. And I'm sure they're going to put in some rules of that you actually have to have your real name as the name as the person who's paying for the subscription. Well, whatever it is, there will be limits that you can't impersonate anyone. You can't do certain things. And so that's good. It's only thing it's going to do is make it to where there will be more real people, right, on Twitter.
Yeah,
more people that are less anonymous, which I think will up the kind of, because anonymity makes people nasty, and that's why Twitter gets so nasty sometimes.
I continue to stand by my stance that it's not for me. Well, not for me. For Elon Musk, the Twitter Blue verification is not necessarily to solve some of the things that you just described. It's a relatively quick way to generate revenue for a company that is struggling hard to generate revenue, and to get a bunch of regular people, and that's who a lot of people buying, even looking at Twitter this afternoon, I saw a lot of individuals that now have blue check marks that only have a couple hundred followers, but to get $8 a month from these people, or $7.99 a month from these people, is a massive thing. And it does so much for a platform. I've seen a lot of people equating it to the early days of Amazon Prime, where you had, originally Amazon Prime was $30 some odd, $30 or $60 a year, and you got free shipping. And then you started getting TV shows, and then you started getting music, and then this and that and this and that, and the next thing you know, you get Grubhub. You get a year of Grubhub Premium when you have an Amazon Prime account. You get Twitch Prime, all of those various things. And I think a lot of people are seeing what Bezos did with Amazon, with Prime, and similar things with Twitter. The ability to maybe post higher resolution images or do specific things like Twitter Spaces. You might only be able to do.
I've heard rumors of a payment system. Have a way to do a payment system, probably.
They filed for some the Twitter filed for some trademark to try and get something to do a payment system. So I would assume that, yes, you might think $8 a month for a blue check, that's horseshit. And guess what? If it's horseshit and you don't like it, then just don't buy it. I mean, it's not really that complicated. And for individuals that do buy it and do want it, there will likely be things added in the future. And then for other people that don't necessarily care about the blue check, but want some of those other features, maybe they'll buy it in the future as well. So pretty interesting to see.
And one thing they're looking at too is they're going to be implementing a 2-tier verification system. So you'll have your blue check marks, which are your standard ones, and then I think you'll have something that's like official or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's going to be some sort of tag.
Yeah, which is kind of like the old blue check mark. People that are maybe a company represented, or someone who's very famous. You'll know that that's that person because there will be this second type of a flag that's on there indicating that this is a person.
So here is
that you're supposed to recognize.
So here's an example. Here's a guy, Pat Harrigan, who's a politician here in North Carolina. He's got a blue check mark, and it says, this account is verified because it's notable in government, news, entertainment, or another designated category. He's got a blue check mark. Here is the quartering, Jeremy, who did not have a blue check mark prior to this, and his account says, this account is verified because it is subscribed to Twitter Blue. So that's how, now you do have to click on it to note that, but that is, right away they're already showing the difference between what these accounts are, just based on that, which is pretty cool. So again,
well, even below that on the other one, you saw that it was flagging like kind of why it showed that
U.S. House candidate,
U.S. House representatives or whatever. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's same thing. Brian, it's a weird equation to make, but I'm going to do it anyway. Microtransactions in video games. If they don't break the game and I don't have to buy it to play the game, I don't care if it's in the game. I choose not to use it. If I want to use it, I can. And I feel the same way about this Twitter verification thing, this Twitter Blue. If I eventually want to do it, and I want to spend $8 a month, to which, heads up, I don't, and I'm not going to, but I can. And it's not going to ruin my experience on the platform if I choose not to. So for me, it seems like a win-win for the platform. It'll allow them to generate some cash, and hopefully that'll push things going forward. And as long as it doesn't destroy the platform, as long as it doesn't have a detrimental impact on the platform, I don't particularly care.
Well, and I have a feeling that they're probably going to start offering things that are perks along with that subscription, kind of like what you're saying Prime did with Amazon Prime. I think there will be a secure payment system that I can verify I'm sending it to the correct person, doing donations to organizations because they're a verified organization. You're sending it to the real person. I think there's a lot of ways that they can kind of make those perks of being verified be a way that you can get extra things from that. One thing that came out after this, and there was a number of confirmations on Twitter by people that had this happen to them, is and Elon Musk confirmed this, is that Twitter employees were charging people up to $15,000 for their blue check mark.
Yeah, black market.
They would apply for their check mark, and then after they were denied, they would get privately approached by an employee saying that they can push theirs through, and there was a fee of sometimes up to $15,000. I think it varied probably based on the person that was asking for it. There were a number of big names that said I was denied the first time, and I was approached, and then they had me pay them money outside of Twitter to be able to get verified. So there was a little bit of a black market going on, and this was confirmed by Elon. Because that's the beauty of it, is he stepped in and had access to all of their logs, chat logs, which kind of confirmed that things that he was saying were happening, that they were denying it to courts were true. I mean, they pretty much had to give up all of these things, and now he has access to everything to see all the internal communications. So it's pretty interesting, and he'll confirm things or, say that it's not. But that was something that he did confirm. There's also been a number of kind of totally stories of places just trying to bash on him, like CNBC saying, Musk reportedly, and when they say that, considered locking all of Twitter behind a paywall. Really?
He spent $44 billion on a company to put it behind an $8 a month paywall. That's big brain thinking if I've ever heard it.
And they say, we couldn't get a hold of a Twitter spokesman was not immediately available to comment.
He is the.
But here, let's tell you all the other things that reportedly they said.
Yeah.
It's like, I just love the reporting nowadays where they just kind of spew out something and say, we we reached out to Twitter to confirm, the stuff we made up. They weren't even able to comment, but here's all the rest of the stuff that we'll say is true. It's just kind of stupid.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I'm
that's happening. We'll see how Twitter changes. I'm still up in the air about exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. So that's
all right.
Yeah, that's kind of Twitter as of right now.
Well, let's talk a little about something that you were talking about earlier, and this is about an Activision story about Bobby Kotick.
Oh,
now this is from Kotaku, of course. So take this with a grain of salt.
No, take it as 100% fact.
Donates $50,000 to Republican who protested the 2020 election.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
So they're pissed because
he
donated to Mike Garcia, who also pursued here you can see pursued draconian curbs to women's reproductive health and freedoms.
Yeah, oh yes,
they have that in quotes. So, they're mad because not everybody thinks like they do. So they've got to go through and bring up everything they can think of.
Bush-era torture apologist and a Trump administration bully. So we're comparing Bobby Kotick to George W. Bush and Trump, of course.
So, but look what they said. Who runs a company who has employed a Bush-era torture apologist. So they're going to find a tweet from some ex-employee of Activision or something and say, see, he's a bad man. Somebody who used to work at Activision tweeted something not nice or something like that. It's just they're getting to the level of he's a bad man because he has employed someone who. Have you seen some of the people that have worked at Twitter, Facebook, Google? There's murderers that have worked there. I mean, NASA had a woman who drove and tried to kill somebody. I mean, we're going to say, the head of NASA, he's a horrible person because he has employed someone who attempted to murder somebody.
This is my favorite part of this article. This is from the author of Kotaku. It's probably some soy boy douchebag, Luke Plunkett. We'll take a look at his. We'll take a look at his profile here. Let's see what he's up to. No, he's actually verified on Twitter. Yeah. So this is what he has to say. Again, this is Kotaku, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what he has to say. I know that nearly 2 years of watching the Republican Party slowly slide into a neo-fascist abyss has taken some of the sting out of this. But just take a second to note the following for the record. The CEO of Activision has spent, no, he hasn't spent, it's his salary, it's his money, it's not Activision's money, it's a donation to a man who opposed Trump's impeachment for his role in January the 6th. Wow.
Yeah.
Hard-hitting journalism by some fucking loser over at Kotaku. Luke Plunkett.
Yeah, you gotta say,
by the way, it's from Australia.
Literally tyranny of a majority right now that is acting more like a Third Reich.
Oh my God, the human. I mean,
there's so much rhetoric.
This website is just such a heaping pile of garbage. It's just unbelievable.
Well, and then here's because PC Gamer, they've got to jump in and hate Activision now because of things like this. But Activision tries to derail Blizzard Albany union vote at the last minute.
No, not the Albany
Communications
Union.
Workers of America says the company is trying to muzzle workers' voices once again. Communication Workers of America, it's another one of those union groups that sit there and just try to harass and get employees not to work and just make it a lesser work environment and create more inefficiency is what I've seen.
Not work and get paid more. It's a pretty ingenious plan, to be honest. I mean, if successful, it is great.
Yeah. Well, and so here it is unclear. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead with this story.
It says it's unclear when the NLRB will respond to Activision's appeal, but it's going to have to be soon. The tally is scheduled to take place on November 18th. So it's coming up here in like a week about, which doesn't leave much room for anyone to maneuver at this point. If the NLRB's previous decision or anything to go by, the union might have the upper hand here. The board has already said once that the QA teams qualifies. And that's the thing is this is just a QA team. They go after the QA teams to get into the company because these are people that are loosely affiliated with the company. All they do is quality assurance testing on products that the company is making. These are the people they go after because they're like, see, yeah, you play video games all day. It's so hard. They don't give you enough money to do it. They ask you to play for a couple hours a day. It's mean, and they get them to join these unions, and then they try to interrupt the company. and they get these QA testers to march down to the place, stand in front, and act like they're not working.
Well, they're not.
They said the board has already said that once the QA team qualifies as a bargaining unit, and found in October that Activision has withheld raises from unionizing staff as an act of retaliation. Activision's last-minute appeal has the air of a Hail Mary about it. So we'll see. I fire the whole QA team. They could do QA out of India if they wanted to. I mean, honestly,
they don't do QA. Activision doesn't do. Hold on a second. Let me stop you. Activision doesn't do QA in their games now. The new Call of Duty came out. It was just littered with issues on day one.
Well, they're too busy protesting and for women's rights and transgender rights. I mean, go for it.
It is just so amazing what this program has become and what the news in the industry. And it's not like, Brian, that you and I have to go to these like weird deep link, websites to find some of this conversation. This stuff is prominent on what used to be very respected. And some of them, for example, PC Gamer is still a very respectable authority in the video game industry.
Yeah.
Kotaku
but they
used
are
to
constantly writing stories like this.
But it's just constant. And it's, again, this is not some some liberal guy that runs a gaming blog. No, these are some of PC Gamer. Their tagline, the global authority on PC games. I mean, these were really legitimate news organizations and outlets just a couple of years ago. And now it's just nonsense. This Luke Plunkett guy who we just talked about in the other articles, wrote an article about Twitter about, I can't believe I have to say this, but you need to verify the verified accounts. So I mean, this guy's just an expert in all of this stuff. It's just unbelievable. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Well,
it's exhausting. Nobody wants to hear about this crap.
Here's the beauty of those unions and all these QA teams doing unionizing. Here's an article that I've been holding on for a little while, but it perfectly segues into where eventually Microsoft and Activision is going to go with QA testing. Xbox Game Studios boss says artificial intelligence QA is his dream.
It's my dream,
pretty much
too.
Getting rid of all of those people that sit there and complain about their jobs and refuse to go to work because they're too busy, protesting they can't go QA, and we ended up with bad versions of video games. So what they want to do is instead use AI to QA, because it's more likely to find bugs. It's going to go and find those little things that end up being glitches that people use to speed run, where you walk to this corner at this angle and you fly across the map. AI is going to find that because they can do a million iterations. Right? It can do tons of things that we don't even think about, and it'll get tons of bugs to where you'll get much cleaner code, or at least be able to find much more hard to find bugs. That's going to cut down on hacking and cheating and all these different things that you run into. So yeah, I agree 100%. QA using AI is something that I think will really improve video games, but also I think it'll make it to where these companies don't have to deal with these people. Have the AI QA. Because obviously all these unions seem to go, every time they go after the QA groups because they're so loosely affiliated and they have no honor or loyalty to the company whatsoever. They're just on the side, kind of side employees.
Brian, the old adage from that internet meme from like a decade ago was modern problems require modern solutions, I think is how it went. It's valid with this, and you can look at another situation in which people decided to try and make a stink about their money and everything, and that's the fast food industry, where McDonald's has replaced a whole bunch of their employees with kiosks, which, by the way, I would much rather use the kiosk, and I do, because I don't have to deal with some bullshit with the kiosk. I tap what I want, I slide my credit card, and I'm done. And then about 6 minutes later, somebody calls my number, I get my food, and I'm done.
Yep.
And I'm not indicating
all of those places.
I'm not anti people working. I'm not anti individuals having jobs. I'm not anti any of this stuff. What I'm anti is when you make you have turned something that for example, if the QA teams truly were unhappy with their salaries or their working conditions or whatever the complaint is, instead of actively trying to work with the company to fix them, They employ these malicious tactics of forming unions that are doing that only goal is by the way, the goal's not even to help the employee. You see this in teachers unions across the United States too. The goal of a teachers union is not to help the teacher, it's to help the union and political sway for the union. They don't care about anybody else involved except for themselves, the union as a whole. They don't care about anything. Yeah. And it's these malicious tactics to hold these companies hostage. And this is the result of that. Actions have consequences, and the consequences are going to be and I would make the argument right now that there's no point of having QA testers anyway, because every game I play is riddled with bugs anyway. I mean, Cyberpunk 2077 was supposed to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. It was a hot garbage. The new Call of Duty was riddled with bugs.
That thing.
I mean, it's just it's like you're taking an industry that can't do their job anyway, and then I'm supposed to have sympathy for them when they're now inevitably going to lose their jobs because some 12-year-old programmed AI to do their job. I don't care.
Well, and that's one thing. I've known someone who was in the QA industry. You know, it wasn't video game QA, but it was a QA. And one thing I figured out is people that work in QA generally are not very tech savvy. You're not required to be a programmer. You're not required to have technical
it's good that
knowledge.
You're not.
Yeah. They're usually people that are very, they wouldn't get hired at the company through other means because they don't know about what, sure, that can be, as you said, that can be great because when you're trying to get the perspective of an average user or a below average user, because that's usually where you're having to deal with when it comes to, tech support because someone can't figure out something, right? So you get someone who has no knowledge of the product, no knowledge of, because like me, if I go and QA certain things, I know how to fix it. I'm not going to ask the questions, or I'm not going to ask them in the way that the person they're trying to figure out how they're going to ask, because I understand what's behind it, and I'll ask them a very direct question that doesn't require, certain things. So that's one thing I found, and I think that's why they're going to these people, because they really don't have a skill set outside of doing QA. They can quit QA and then go work at McDonald's, or they can go do a general job. They can do something bigger than McDonald's, but go do a general job. But they're not going to get a job going to EA or Activision and programming the game. They're not going to get that job. If you can do that, you're not in QA. That's just the way it is. So, I think that's personally why they go after these QA people. And shame on the QA people for thinking that they're going to get something for nothing. No, if you don't like your job, move on and do something else.
They're getting conned. Part of it, and obviously, if you're gonna fall for something, there's nobody to blame but yourself. But they're getting played by these unions. Again, it's this. Oh my God, we're here to support you, and we're gonna do this and that. When none of that ends up happening, you just end up losing your job anyway. Or like what you have with Starbucks, they just shut down the store. So now you've unionized. Now you just lost your job. Congratulations. So it's very interesting to watch this stuff unfold and to continue to see this. And this is the natural progression with this stuff. Instead of handling things in an appropriate manner, you just go down this malicious approach, and it has consequences.
Yep. Now, let's talk about an update to something we kind of brought up last week, but the EU has expanded their investigation. I think that last week we reported that it looks like it was going to be expanded.
They might.
But the EU now has expanded the investigation into Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And here's what they say. They say it's worried that sales of non-Windows PCs may be affected. Discourages users
gaming?
to buy non-Windows PC because of the Game Pass being on Windows.
Yeah, but
why is that? Why should that be anywhere in the decision? Whether or not they're going to offer a product that's so enticing under certain platforms, go get an Xbox. Also, you could stream it. Like what? You can also play this on a PlayStation. It just seems like a really odd reason that they're worried that it's going to discourage users from buying non-Windows PC. What, Mac?
Yeah, hardcore Mac.
What else are they buying? I mean, people playing games on Macs. That's what you're worried about.
Well, when you, I mean, well, when you say, I guess so. That is, I guess, what you're saying. Yeah, you're afraid of people buying. Yeah, the Linux gaming community.
They're not worried about
Brian,
Linux gaming. I mean, come on. I've tried Linux gaming. That's been a struggle. Now, of course, they've got it to where with what's the name of that Proton or whatever.
Yeah, Proton
That has made a big difference. But honestly, if your biggest concern is that you're going to make such an enticing product on the Game Pass being able to run in a Windows computer that they're not going to buy Macs, like that's not a legitimate excuse, because a Mac is not what you'd buy to go. Why not say that they need to regulate Photoshop, because it discourages people, because the Mac version is so much better that it discourages people from buying Windows PCs. I mean, what's the difference? Just because something entices people. I know plenty of people that do video editing on a Mac because it just does better. What do you have to level the playing field? It's kind of like the whole lowering everybody down to an equal expectation.
Yeah,
let something be better one place. Why do you need to lower everything down?
The bigotry of low expectations, Brian. Saul Goodman in chat says, your product is such a good value that it threatens lesser products. EU regulators go. Yeah, that's essentially what they're saying here. Yeah, I can't imagine that many individuals are clamoring because Microsoft is going to buy Activision, and some Activision games that are probably not on OS X now are not going to be on OS X in the future.
Yeah, and I think that Microsoft has proved that it's not like they're making the Game Pass just to keep people playing games on Windows. They're creating a platform that works across multiple devices and works in an app form. And you think that they're trying to force people to Xbox hardware when they've been pushing people away from Xbox hardware? You think that they're trying to keep people on Microsoft Windows when they're making an app that will work on other devices, Android included, that lets them stream and play their video game on mobile devices, and they're worried about them playing on a Mac? You could have a Mac app that lets you stream the device just like you will on every other platform. It does nothing but opens up all these games to be played on more than just Windows or an Xbox, which has been the problem before. You can only play on a console, and you can play on Windows. It's going to open it up because you'll be able to stream it through their Game Pass. It's very silly to me.
I'll give Microsoft and Activision a huge amount of props thus far for putting up with this crap from all these various countries as they've gone through this, because and every time even looking at this article that you've got in here about the regulators or about this EU regulation, Bobby Kotick over at Activision, talking about it's a long process and we're working with the regulators and we're doing all this. They have got to be just beyond themselves with this nonsense, especially from an organization like the EU, who is regulating chargers and for phones and a bunch of other stupid crap. I do not think that the EU will be the holdup on this merger.
Yeah, and if this is the best that they could come up with, I'm not too concerned about the merger. Because you figured there'd be something else they would come up with, and that was their concern. People are going to buy non-Windows PCs. Yeah, it's pretty silly. Well, here's another thing that popped up: is the U.S. military is set to get its first delivery of $22 billion worth of Microsoft HoloLens, and these are the HoloLens is like the VR type of a thing, and they're supplying these to the military.
The military is essentially the only reason HoloLens is still in development. It's literally for the military.
Yeah, and so there has been, of course, people who don't like the military. The Kotaku, a lot of people on Kotaku don't like the military at all. Saying, "Well, this is bad," and so I had this article in there for a while, but I saw a follow up, which is why I figured we should talk about it today. Where PC Gamer followed up and says Microsoft tells shareholders not to worry their pretty little heads about its work with the U.S. military. I'm sure they didn't say pretty little heads. That's just a little bit of them trying to make it seem one way or the other. But here's what Microsoft did say. We said, we do not believe the requested third-party analysis would advance the interest of Microsoft as shareholders and other stakeholders. So, so they were saying, because I guess a third party can't try to step in and push for them to dig into this more. I don't. Is working with the military is now a bad thing? I mean, Lockheed
It
Martin.
is.
Look at all these companies that are giant companies that have worked with the military.
Well, okay. So there's a couple of things here, without getting too far down the rabbit hole on it. I'm not always the biggest fan of companies working with the military, not because I'm anti-military, but because the federal government just loves to invest money and piss it away on projects that never come to fruition. That's a problem.
Yep.
But in this case, that's not what they're talking about. They're not happy with this because they hate the country and they hate the military and they're anti-United States of America, so they don't want a company like Microsoft that has government contracts, even though every other big tech company, Google, everybody else has government contracts and has done work. And as you mentioned, Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all these other military industrial complex companies have been doing this stuff for decades now. Not good enough for Google and everybody else, not good enough for Microsoft and Activision because for whatever not for whatever reason, they're the target of the current woke mob in the video game industry, specifically because of Bobby Kotick. They cannot stand him.
And they had a Microsoft employees protest against helping one country's government increase lethality using tools we build. That's how they worded it.
So exhausting. I mean, I don't even. What do you even say to this stuff, Brian? I mean, it's just it's so over the top and ridiculous.
Well, and everything is politics now. So that's what's frustrating is that everything just has to come back to, we need to protest this because it doesn't fall in line with my personal political views. Sometimes you work for a company that you don't agree 100% on with everything, right? Do you think I agreed with Google on everything when I worked with them? No. That I made the choice whether or not I wanted to work with them more permanent, and their politics was something that I decided, I didn't want to because of that. But that's, if you're so against what they're doing, sure, change jobs. Don't sit there and protest and tell them that they need to be doing something differently. You're the one choosing to work there.
That's been the argument that we've made on all of these issues now for years. And it just doesn't seem to really resonate with anybody in this industry. Oh, and there's not enough pay. Oh, the hours suck. Or, oh, this is a terrible industry. Okay, well then find a new industry, find a new job, find a new company. Do what every other individual has to do in their lives. I'm not sure why individuals in the video game industry think they're so special. I mean, these people really. Yeah. I mean, it's not like these people are out here curing cancer, Brian. They're QA testing video games. I mean, the world will spin without your useless job. I mean, I hate to be so brash about it, but it's like you make it out that like society is going to come to a collapse if somebody isn't sitting there testing the new Call of Duty before they charge me $70 to do it for them, which is what happens now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, once AI is there, maybe it'll actually.
They don't even need AI. Well, screw AI. Just they do what they do now. Have the public beta test your game. That's what they do. Buy the game for $70, and it's broken for the first 3 weeks.
Yep.
You are the QA tester.
That's how it always seems to be. The first couple patches, they're just trying to get it working, and then everything kind of smooths out from there.
I've got an interesting Steam story in here revolving around Ubisoft. You had it in here. I saw this earlier this week. According to a guy on GitHub, he found some commit to a log somewhere that indicated that there's some sort of Assassin's Creed Valhalla Steam version that popped up in some changelog somewhere in some commit in some project. With that, the rumor is now spinning that Ubisoft games might finally be coming back to Steam. I didn't know this, Brian. I'm not sure you do or our audience does. The last game from Ubisoft to be released on Steam was Trials Rising back in February of 2019. So you're talking about nearly 4 years here in 4 months. Just shy of 4 years since a Ubisoft game has been on Steam. Could we see the future of Ubisoft games making their way back to the platform. It's also interesting to note that Ubisoft games are on Epic Game Store.
Yes. Yeah, and this thing is, they said in 2021, Steam BD noticed that a version of Ubisoft Connect client appeared in the Steam database, which I think is a good indicator that they were testing something, right? Trying to test that background connection. I could see them doing that, because they got away from the Origin launcher and all of this. It's on Epic.
Uplay.
All these companies now, it would play before. And I think now they're realizing, well, the more places we can put our game, the better. And they're already selling them, especially when they started selling access to them on, Google's streaming device and all these different platforms. Just make it available. Make it less. It's less about the device you're playing it on. You're selling a copy of the game. Just sell it. And they think that they're happier now, especially when we have had these hardware market crash, where things are unavailable.
I wonder how much of this is not a timed exclusivity, but maybe kind of a handshake with Tim Sweeney over, hey, we're going to put our games on Epic for a couple of years and just on the game store and kind of see what happens. And then maybe, we'll decide if we want to do an exclusivity deal or not. Maybe it was more of just like a company to company agreement, nothing official. And they've determined that, because again, why would you have your game on Epic Game Store and not Steam? It comes down to the rev split, where you've got Steam's taking about 30% of the cut, and Epic is taking between 12 and 15%. But if you're not selling volume on the Epic Game Store, the 12 or 15% is useless. If you can sell 4 times the number of games on Steam at 30%, you're still way ahead. And that number could very well be significantly larger than 4 times. It could be 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 times the number of sales that you would have gotten. So, that number is big. 30% is a big number, but in terms of the amount of eyeballs that you can get in front of and the amount of copies that you can sell, I'm not sure for a company like Ubisoft, where volume is kind of how they do their business, it's that big of a deal. If you're an indie dev, the 30% is probably a much bigger deal. And that would make sense because you're looking at a situation, you're looking at you're looking at small amounts of sales. So if you're only going to sell $10,000 worth of games, 12% versus 30% is huge. If you're going to sell $1 million or $2 million worth of sales, yes, there is still a difference between 12 and 30, but it's significantly less in terms of your bottom line. So maybe that's what they've determined, is that, if you want people to play your games, you got to be on the platform that people are using. And like it or hate it, like or hate Epic, like or hate anybody else, it's Steam. That's where people are. And that's where people choose to buy their games. But not everybody.
Well, and Valve is going to be increasing the regional pricing for PC games on Steam, which is actually upping them quite a bit in some of these other regions. In India, they were it's not rubles, but whatever they do for their currency there. Before it was $12.99, so $1,299, and now it's going to be $2,400. That's almost a double price difference compared to what it was there before. So I think that's going to also, for any of the international pricing, Steam is going to be to where they're making people pay. Like here we pay $70, but if you look at these various conversion rates, people in foreign countries are starting to pay quite a bit more for games on Steam as well.
This is not. So what were they doing before? Were they just charging $59.90, the equivalent of $59.99 in every currency? Because there's always been regional pricing. That's always been the case, and it's always cost a lot more money to buy games in places. Brazil's the first place that comes to my mind, because we've seen a lot. Brazil's a huge video game market. It's always a lot more expensive down there. What exactly are they changing?
I think they're now just keeping it up to date, because I think that they weren't keeping it current.
Okay.
And so you would buy a game in Russia. Remember, I was pissed because what's that game that we refused to buy
Factorio.
unless they put it on
No.
Factorio?
Yes.
You could buy Factorio for like $3 in Russia, which pisses me off. Not on sale, but because of the way the currency worked, you could buy the game for practically nothing in Russia. But then we have, you pay here $30 or whatever it is. So they're updating all their prices to match with the kind of ever-changing currency exchange rates, where now a lot of these places are ending up paying quite a bit more.
Yeah,
because the value of the dollar versus everything else has changed.
So is this going to potentially get rid of Russian keys and stuff like that? These these key sites where they're able to buy unregion locked games for pennies on the dollar,
like
and
nothing,
and then flip them.
Yeah, because
USD.
you were getting them. I mean, just look to get a $59.99 game, as they showed in the example. In India, they would pay $12.99. Now they're paying $2,400 just to match the $59.99 price. So they are now paying double. So they were getting $59.99 games for half price, pretty much $30. This is what they get the game for. You turn around and you sell an Indian key back to the United States on some seller site, and you've made $30. Or minus whatever you marked it down to get someone to purchase it.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to cut down a lot on a lot of those aftermarket key prices,
which is going to be a huge detriment, obviously, to SCD keys and G2A and some of these other platforms that have.
Yep.
Yeah, that's literally what they do. I'm not. It's surprising that it. It's surprising that it took this long, I guess, because I know Xbox. Xbox got some heat a couple months ago. We talked about the cost of the Xbox console, or no. Was it Sony?
Yep.
Or I don't remember if it was. Maybe it was
Sony,
PlayStation. Yeah, they're raising the price of the PlayStation in a lot of other markets.
They're getting more expensive.
More expensive. So it's interesting that Steam, I guess, just wasn't keeping up to date with this. Interesting.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be to where it automatically now suggests prices for various regions based on the conversions, so that the Steam seller now can market to where it's actually the same price in all these different places, and it keeps up with the 39 different worldwide currencies that they sell.
Steam offers 39 currencies for their platform. That's crazy.
39 different currencies,
wow,
on their platform.
That's a lot. That goes to show you the total domination they have in the video game industry, because to accept a foreign currency, they're likely using a national bank in whatever that country of origin is to do that transaction, or at least part of that transaction. You've got to have enough volume going through that, Brian, where it's worth accepting a payment in some, what we would determine as an obscure form of payment. But for them, again, you're talking about the serious volume that they must be doing. That's pretty.
Well, I remember
this impressive.
This was kind of the frustration that Epic had early on with Fortnite, trying to let people purchase all of the the V-Bucks in all of these different countries, and the crazy exchange rates that they were having to deal with, to where people were mad because they were paying so much for V-Bucks in all these different countries. But it came down to it was difficult for them to have all of these different price structures and being able to do transactions with all of these different countries on it and maintain the exchange rates and have all these different carriers to handle these transactions. So it's a big mess. Maybe Twitter's the answer, and they're having some sort of a purchasing platform that works between all countries.
Yes,
maybe that's what they'll sell.
Yeah, Chief Elon will have all of our problems solved sooner rather than later with his new payment platform there. Here's a couple of other interesting things here that we've been looking at. You've got a story in here about Discord, which has been a very popular, very interesting platform. I am of the mindset, Brian, that Discord is at any point moments away from completely falling apart with start charging for servers, or some weird rule where they just start blowing out accounts. And they've already done this. They banned over
Yeah.
55 million accounts, 68,000 servers over the last 6 months. So
Yeah.
they are really cracking down on this stuff in terms of accounts that they're going after and servers that they're removing. This is between January and June of this year. They've banned 68,379 servers and banned 5.573 million accounts. They say that spam was 1.8 million of the accounts. What the rest of those, when looking at the offenses other than spam, okay, so out of the 55 million, 1.8 were not spam. So those were, I guess,
Probably based on
going
what things they
against,
said.
yeah, well, of course, yeah, Discord's
Community
rules,
guidelines, something like that.
yeah, exactly, which are, of course, loosely enforced. So they talk about a couple of the things there, but interesting to see what they do going forward, and if they can continue to push their platform, continue to build their platform, have it moderated, but thread that needle and not go too far where now everybody and their brother, just similar to social media accounts, just gets blown off the platform for everything. I mean, they start coming around to our server, and we post a picture of a guy doing an interview with Tucker Carlson, is now our Discord server gets banned because of hate speech or whatever nonsense they can justify. So pretty interesting stuff.
Well, and this is something with Discord, because it's as you said, it's kind of amazing that they maintain keeping online and offering all of this, because a lot of companies usually they fold earlier than this. They've offered these Nitro services and a number of other things as a way to bring in some income, but they really don't ask you for money. For what they give you, they give you a lot, and they ask for very little. And my concern is that at some point they'll hit a line where it's like, okay, we now need to start making money, and then they make some big changes to try to make that happen. And I think that'll kill their service. I understand Nitro is something cool, but they've got to figure out another way. They tried selling games, that didn't work. They've got to figure out a way to bring in money. I think it's going to be through communities, but I don't know that Nitro is the way to do it, because they're trying to gamify funding the server, and I just don't see the perks of Nitro as big enough for me to want to bother, paying for it.
This is always the problem with a platform that gains such popularity like Discord has, while it's been free, and you obviously, of course, make it free off the start because it's the only way you can build the platform and build a user base. But at some point, you have to turn a profit. Seed funding only goes so far, and eventually you need to.
There's a lot of hardware behind this service.
Yeah,
there is. To be able to manage the thousands and thousands of who knows how many servers that they are operating. There's a lot of hardware behind that, and that costs a lot monthly. And the fact that they've not gotten a penny out of me yet, I've used their service for years. Like, how does that work? How are they paying for this? That's what concerns me, is I don't see how they're paying for it. And it's at some point there's got to be money coming in to pay for me. Somebody's going to have to have given enough to pay for me.
They're paying through they're paying for it with Nitro in some regards. Seed funding, angel investing from whatever seed of seed funding level they're at right now. It seems to me, though, and what I think makes the most sense is charging the server owners. That's to me, if you have to start charging for the platform, which, by the way, I'd hope they don't, but the reality is at some point you have to generate revenue. Charge a small fee, $2-3 a month, to server operators to operate their servers. And I think for even a small
allow
group
donations to directly to the server to help cover the cost.
Yeah. And and I think it's important to keep a relatively low price there, like $3 or $4 a month. So even a small community server of just 30 or 40 people, somebody in that group can justify $3 or $4 a month to keep it running. When you get to that $8, $9, $10 a month price tag, you're like, for $10 a month, I would much rather subscribe to a different service or do something else. I would imagine these conversations have to be ongoing at Discord constantly. I'm surprised it's still completely free. Honest to God.
Yeah, and that's the thing is for what they're offering, and I'd have to look at what the prices of Nitro are now.
$10 a month, I think.
$10, yeah, to get a little bit better screen sharing resolution. I mean, that's just not enough for me. If I was using that all the time, sure, but just the perks that they're giving, I think that's where, as you said, have the server pay $10 a month for the ability to do something a little bit extra, and then allow people to donate towards paying for that, to where if it's paid for by your users through donations, then it doesn't charge your server, something like that. To where then a community can support it in a way that seems reasonable, rather than buying all these nitros and then giving boosts to the server, which really don't seem to accomplish much of getting anything to the actual server owner.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's the latest with Discord.
All right. Well, let's cover one more thing really quick. So sure. Facebook, they're firing 11,000 people.
That's just today. Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is just recently. And of course, a lot of people are saying this has a lot to do with Metaverse and the amount of money they're spending towards Meta, which seems to have been a pretty big flop.
Huge flop.
I mean, I don't hear anything about it. They keep talking about this virtual world, but the thing is, Facebook came around not because it was the most popular thing and then people went to it. It just kind of caught on because it was doing something that hadn't been done before. You can't force that stuff. And I think Zuckerberg feels like, well, I've done it once before, I can do it. Well, no, you, out of tons of other people, your one thing happened to be picked up and people liked it for some reason. Just because you're making Meta doesn't mean that it's going to be good. Because I've not heard anyone really say anything positive.
Except one person, Brian, has been singing Facebook's praises for months now, and that is the illustrious Jim Cramer on CNBC. Oh. He has been stroking Zuckerberg and Facebook's ego for months now. He's been hyping and raving about the metaverse. Just last week, when Facebook announced when their stock, by the way, plummeted, I got in at a pretty low price, like $91 a share, when it plummeted last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it did, because it was like trading at like 140, 150, and it just dove under. Listen to this. This is like 30 seconds of Jim Cramer literally tearing up on air, talking about how wrong he was about Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg.
Free cash flow last year, $9.5 billion. Now less than $1 billion. Okay, let me say this about this. I made a mistake here. I was wrong. I trusted this management team. That was ill-advised. Hubris here is extraordinary. And I apologize.
Okay.
He realized he messed up.
Yeah, let a lot of people.
Well, I mean, just if you look at that graph that he showed, I mean, just the constant, it's just going down, 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 and then in one day the thing drops 100 points. Was it? I mean, it was what, 80 points or 100 points or something like that. It was pretty crazy.
I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what it was at or what it traded down to, but Facebook has and Zuckerberg,
it was like 130 went down to 80 or something like that.
Yeah, I got in the upper 90s. The interesting thing I saw was Zuckerberg, and somebody like screen recorded his announcement today, telling staff that they were getting fired, and he just talked about how they just that he screwed up. I mean, I guess that they thought Meta, this metaverse thing that they were invested all of these billions of dollars into, was somehow going to turn dividends, and I'm not even sure how you get access to it, Brian. I mean, I have an Oculus headset. I'm not even sure how. I don't even know what the metaverse is. Facebook's metaverse. Yeah. I'm not even sure how you would even access that. And I have an Oculus device, a Facebook device.
You figured that it would just be something you could get onto.
It might be.
Try it out.
It might be, but I don't know because it's not been nothing. Nothing's been talked about with it. Nothing. I don't even know.
Yeah.
All I hear is people talking about it online, and I see like like people shaking hands in the metaverse, and it's supposed to be this, oh, look at this, two business people shaking hands in a virtual boardroom making a business deal, and I'm like, you're shitting me, right? This is $15 billion worth of investment. Just doesn't really seem to make sense. So yeah, that's Facebook and Twitter.
Let me give you that quote.
Big cuts.
Oh yeah. Let me give you the quote that you're kind of referring to of him saying what happened.
Zuckerberg.
Of course, because yes, Zuckerberg.
Oh, okay.
So with COVID, this is one thing that they were saying. With COVID was too good for them as a company, citing outsized revenue growth as a result of people spending more time and money online during lockdowns. He said many people predicted that this would be a permanent acceleration that would continue even after the pandemic ended. I did too, so I made the decision to significantly increase our investments. Unfortunately, this did not happen. He then referenced the macroeconomic downturn, increased competition, and ad signals loss, saying that these all led to much lower revenue than expected, which you saw with their stock prices. Then crucially, he adds, I got this wrong, and I take responsibility for that. So
take responsibility for it all you want.
Huge loss for the company.
Yeah, huge loss for the company and big cuts at, people were freaking out about the Meta layoffs. With the Twitter layoffs. Oh my God, Elon Musk's cutting 4,000 workers. Facebook literally fired over 11,000 people.
11,000 people.
I mean, that's a huge amount of people that got fired, and that was not because of advertisers canceling. It's because they just invested into something that. Obviously, for Zuckerberg,
really going nowhere. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. This is obviously a pet project that he really believed in, and he obviously has had good ideas in the past. I mean, with the purchase of Instagram and stuff like that, Facebook is a very successful platform. It's arguably one of the best digital advertising platforms in the world, outside of maybe YouTube and Google. But this just, I didn't ever see a point where this would pay dividends. Like, again, they invested $15 billion into the metaverse for a couple of guys to shake hands virtually in a boardroom. It's just crazy.
And I think that also a lot of people a lot of the younger generations are leaving Facebook because there's other things that they find more interesting. And when you're left with grandma and people are my age and older as what's left on Facebook, you think they're interested in the metaverse?
They're not.
I mean, you could ask them 90% of the people on Facebook what an Oculus Rift is, and they'll tell you, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Is that a video game? What is it? They'll have no clue. Well, when that's what's left on your platform, yet you're investing everything, what are you hoping is going to bring them back? You're not going to bring the kids back with an Oculus Rift because they're all playing cell phone things, things that are on a mobile device. They're not putting on a headset and staying home, especially now that the pandemic is over, which is true. People are wanting to go out and to live again. And I think that they were hoping, the liberals' utopia was that people are going to stay inside and everything was to become virtual so you could be whatever you want to be. And I think that that's kind of crumbled because people do like to go out and converse and have interactivity with other people, or at least do that online. And Facebook is not a good source of that because there's so much bipartisanship even on Facebook. On Facebook, I don't give a lot of personal views on Facebook because all it does is stir up controversy because people then think because they're semi-anonymous, they'll sit there and come back at you, just like on Twitter. You say anything on Twitter, you're going to have 10 people saying, oh, you're stupid because you believe this way, just because it's different than they believe. That's how Facebook is. I think the younger generation's tired of that, and they're moving on to something where you don't talk politics. You go and share pictures and do stupid things online or in an app, and they're not interested in all the stuff of, I have this neighborhood app now, which is pretty much turned into Facebook because I just want to know when things are happening. Next door, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know if something was happening in the area, like an emergency or anything like that, so I could react to it. And now it's grandmas posting pictures about, their dog and people now griping at each other. And it's all politics. It turned into another Facebook. And it's just like, I don't want to use it anymore. I wanted to use it as utility, not as a social media or social platform, which just always now, because of the bipartisan, turns into a big, heaping pile.
Yeah, I'm looking at
I think
I'm looking at my Nextdoor app right now, and yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
It's devolved into that. People want something that isn't all about politics. If it's going to be the metaverse, it needs to be something that's separated from what Facebook, for instance, which is super political. Allow people to just go in there and have fun, and don't tell them that they have to have this or that and they can't do this or that. Like, that's what makes things work, is when you give them a platform where they can pretty much do whatever they want, and then they start to tone it back as it becomes popular.
Yeah.
That's what Twitter started as, Facebook started as, and it's like, that with all the rules and the liberalness of Facebook now, they're not going to be able to bring Meta in and want people to use it. It's not going to work.
Very, very true.
All right. Well, I think is there anything else you wanted to cover here before we exit out here?
No, sir. I think we're good to go.
One thing I want to mention is a follow-up really quickly. The Google Play Games for PC has launched in the United States. So if you want to try playing some Android games on your computer, they now have an app that you can go on there and connect to, and you can play a lot of the various Android mobile games on your computer, and it runs all right. I've seen a few issues here and there with things that just don't quite act the same, but for the most part works. So if you want to continue a game, have it running on another screen, that is now going. So it's available in the U.S. So hey, if you want to find me, you can find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, or at Brian Aldridge on Gab Parler, Getter, Truth Social, or check out my blog, biteoftech.com. And if you want to go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, just go to the upper right of our website there, and you can join us on Discord. We talked about it earlier. Maybe there's a topic that you think we should be covering. Throw a link on that in the news channel, and we'll review that. If you need to get a hold of Nick or I, that's an excellent way to do that. Also, if you want to play some Ark, we got 11 Ark servers going in there. We have a Conan Exile server going in there. And those are working really well. If you want to watch the live show, you can do that through Twitch and YouTube. Or if you're going to listen after the fact, you can do that through the lower right-hand side. A lot of different podcast apps that you can use. And also, if you are going to be listening to it, that means the show notes are uploaded for that particular episode. Just click on one of the episodes, and you can have a nice little audio and video player in there. And you can also click on maybe a video that while you're listening, you want to see it, or see some reference material. See if what we're talking about is accurate, or so you see where we got the information. We have links for everything right in there. It makes it really easy. If you want to support us, there's a support option up top, or infectionpodcast.com/support.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Brian. And thanks to all of our supporters that have stuck with us here and continue to do so over the and have continued to do so over the years, is what I'm trying to say. All right, Brian, I'm sleep deprived. I'm hopped up on caffeine, and I'm starting to the sentences and the words, Brian. They're not doing it.
Words are hard.
The thing, words are, it's a thing with a word. It's a complicated thing. So thank you, Brian, as always. And by the way, we're back on our regular scheduled slate and time next Tuesday, back here for another edition of Infection. Brian, thanks as always, my man. Greatly appreciated, and we will see you next week. I am not verified on Twitter, and I will not be spending $8 a month, but that doesn't mean that you can't follow me at Nicholas M. Craig. You can check out my website and my day job with the Wilmington's Morning News podcast at nickcraig.com. 3 hours of live local radio each and every day. Check that out there and download the podcast. If you missed any portion of today's show, I'd recommend you check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, where you'll find some great show notes and videos and some lovely Kotaku articles. All of that, our website, infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.